So I wanted to do this little video on a slightly unusual topic and one that I've not seen anyone else covering so far. And it probably will go a little bit all around the houses, but bear with me guys, because there's some real little gems in here that I think some of you might find very interesting. But it's the whole notion that a spiritual awakening, being the uncovering of our true self, can often lead us in this position. This is something that I've noticed a lot, that we can get called conspiracy theorists, because when we start trying to put our new found knowledge, for want of a better word, into conversations with someone else, not only is that thing something that our friends or peers or whoever have not heard us speak of before, it also goes against every single thing they ever believed in, which were all the things also that you used to never believe in, or had belief in, sorry. So let me try and break this down a little bit better, because it's a really interesting topic, and I've been mulling this over all morning. Well, I've been mulling it over for years, but more so all morning, and that's why I kind of wanted to just spontaneously do this video. When we're at school, I think we've all become very aware that the system plays it that when we're at school, we're taught and told and to conform and to not question anything that's going on in society, not question anything that we're being taught. And I think I said in one of my other videos, if I asked a question, I'd be sent out into the corridor. And I used to ask a lot of questions. And that was because as a child, I would see very clearly that I thought a lot of what was going on was just complete nonsense. And I think most of us did, because we all had conversations at school of, why are they teaching us this? Why are they teaching us that? But none of us say anything. Well, I was the kid that wasn't the troublemaker, but I used to want to know why. And that curiosity in me was so strong that I would often ask why. And then I'd be sent out to the corridor, or I'd be told to go to the headmaster's room, or I'd have my knuckles rapped. If you can believe that type of punishment actually went on. Those of you that are a bit younger might not think that that's a real thing, but those of us, certainly my generation, 70s and 80s and before that, 100% know what I'm talking about with that. So in other words, you were slapped into conform. And if your schooling or whatever it was wouldn't make you conform by a physical punishment, there was the shame element of it. So you could be shamed for wanting to ask questions because you've disrupted the class. And of course, you then get in trouble with your parents. Your parents don't want to be seen as bad parents according to the rule book. So they would now punish you for something that really in all of us is innately acceptable. It's a very free universe. We are just part of it. We just popped into existence, like everything else just popped into existence that we're here. We're not in this universe, we're kind of it. We are it. The same as the universe is us. We are the universe. We are all just one thing. So, but now we can't ask questions about anything. So we get crushed into this small person that then has all these layers put on top of us of other people's opinions, other people's beliefs. The rule book comes into play. Don't step out of line. Don't do this. Don't ask questions. Don't think for yourself. Anything that you think that's remotely not to do with how we see things is wrong. So as a small child, and this is what you have to bear in mind, as a very small child, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever, you're not going to question, because we rely on adults and our family and parents for our survival. So we don't want to be naughty and outcast. So they're the little subliminal things that are going on within the system. Like I say, whether people want to think that is in the system on purpose or whether it's accidental, it's irrelevant. It happens. And people like to sort of think that it needs to happen because otherwise there would just be people going crazy all over the place. No, if you went right back to the beginning of time when all this nonsense started, if everyone was able to be a little bit more free thinking and less pressured, we wouldn't all aspire to outdo one another and want to live our life according to what has been set for us and chase after a proverbial dream that actually doesn't exist and creates nothing but misery and depression on the chase for that dream. But that's a whole nother video altogether. So when you've got that going on in your childhood, and then you have the normal ego stuff that we all know about, the normal ego, generational beliefs, societal beliefs, all of this stuff that gets kind of passed down to us. So we have this whole ego identity that gets on top of us. I want to speed this up a bit here, but if you then go forward to whatever age you are now, whenever your conspiracy theory, whenever your spiritual awakening happened. Now I'm going to miss out a big chunk here, and I've missed out this big chunk on purpose. And the big chunk is just filling in all the gaps up to your spiritual awakening, what happens during a spiritual awakening. But I've got other videos on that, and other wonderful people out there have left their videos on spiritual awakenings who can also give you guidance as to what happens during that. But for the sake of this video, and most of you watching, we know what happens on a spiritual awakening. So now go forward all these years and you've had your spiritual awakening. Out goes your ego. We know this. Out goes your ego, and there you are. Right, so you're now left. But guess who else is left there? It's the child from back in the day who wanted to ask the questions. So all those questions are still within you now, because the ego's gone, because those questions were part of who you were as a human being when you was a baby, when you was a child. So they're not going to go, the questions are now there. The difference is you've had all this education and all this stuff go on inside of you, and now you're an adult, you can see the world a bit clearer after your spiritual awakening. That is, you see the world a bit clearer, so now you can answer your own questions, and those questions will be answered by how you now see the system. You could see what was going on. You was just a curious child wanting to ask questions or do things or wonder why we're here, explore that, but you're not allowed to. You wasn't allowed that freedom of thought. Now you're older, you can see that. So when you then have these conversations with people who are still caught in the matrix, if you like, who are still caught in the matrix or have not woken up, and you try and explain how you now see the world to those people, that's why they can look at you like you're daft or like you're a conspiracy theorist. Again, makes you feel very lonely, like the other videos that I've said, because you feel like you're the only one. Until you go online and then you start realizing more and more people like myself, like you guys who are watching, are leaving videos about this stuff, and we're giving our takes on stuff. Now, I've been called all sorts of names: conspiracy theorist, anarchist, and amongst other things that might be a bit harsher than that. But it's fine. I can accept it now, because I've learned to see things in a way for those people who have called me those names, who are still caught in the matrix. It kind of breaks my heart for them, and I feel almost like it's my duty now to try and give back to our species, to give back to humanity, and try as best as I can to try and open people's eyes up a little bit as to what is actually going on. And if we can, all we can get out of that is the fact that they see one or two things slightly different and they instill that into their children, that's a start of changing things rolling downhill. That's a start of ending that. If they can do one or two things and give their children more freedom of thought, rather than putting into their children what they believe, what they want. Because a lot of what I mean by that is parents won't often want to stand out amongst other parents as the bad parent or the one who does things differently. So we'll end up doing what everyone else does, which is why we always end up with pretty much the same results. And when I say results, some people have a big house, some people have a small house, some people have good jobs, some people have bad jobs. But I'm talking about pretty much, you can box it all up. It's pretty much the same type of thing that we end up with. But if we can change one or two of those little things and people put that down into their children, then the inherited generational beliefs that have held all us back, that's where it can start to stop. And that's where I feel like some of us can really make a change. I just want to tap on this little thing quickly. I know when I was at school, because this is a lovely little thing that came into my head this morning, and I wrote it down there. But I remember when I used to ask teachers a question, I'd be very genuine as to why is that? I wasn't trying to cause trouble. So those teachers would more often than not shut me down. And they'd shut me down because I was being disruptive, according to them, or what they believed, or what they've been told. I was being disruptive, and so I had to leave the classroom. I now realise as I got older, the whole reason they would shut me down is because they couldn't answer the question. They couldn't answer it. So if I was to say, why are we learning that geography part? Or why are we learning Latin? Or what? They couldn't actually argue. They couldn't answer that question in any logical form. And most of those people will think through a logic brain. So therefore, they can't answer the question. I'm not saying that goes for that in every single scenario of every question ever asked from a child. No. But certainly a lot of the time, a lot of people I find when I talk to them now, the ones who are least likely to understand what I'm saying are the ones who might be perceived as the brightest. And I feel that there's a conflict between their logic, their bright brain, and the wisdom of consciousness. It's almost as if these people can see the truth there, but their logic won't allow them to believe it. And what they can't then see, and this is all sorts of other people, what they then can't see is the truth because they're looking at it through those logic eyes. And because they're looking at it through the logic eyes, it kind of dismisses everything that we would all inherently know as human beings. Why would we not know these things? We are just part of this, what is going on. We are just at one with it. All of this stuff goes on deeply unconscious and goes back hundreds, thousands of years. But if we go back millions of years, we've done all right without being ruled and governed. And it's only recently that the heaviness of the ruling and governing has meant that governing of us has meant that a lot of us have gone into a shell and been collapsed. Our true selves has been collapsed under a sheer weight of pressure to not be the person who stands out, to not be the person who speaks up against a system, against a gang, against anything that we might believe in. Whether that belief is real or not real, is warranted or not warranted, is right or wrong, is irrelevant. We wasn't even allowed to speak it. And to a large degree, no, to an even larger degree, that's how it is now in society still. And if we could all come together in a more collective pot and appreciate and accept one another's opinions, I just feel like everything would be so much easier to cope with. Everything would be so much less, what's the word I'm looking for? It's repressive. We would all stop living this fake lie of all speaking in a manner to not upset other people rather than actually saying what it is that we think and we feel. But for those of us that have woken up, or for those of us that have had a spiritual awakening and our egoic self has gone, of course, with the egoic self goes away the whole, because we see through a lot of the stupidness, which is the shame inside, because a lot of that goes, we now don't worry about saying something. It's like on this video. I hope a lot of people agree, but I'm aware there'll be a lot of people that won't, and that's fine. I'm so comfortable with that. But that's why I think when people who have had a spiritual awakening, they want to start talking to friends and peers, we get these other thoughts and feelings that come into our head. We start speaking that, of course, guys, you're speaking to someone else's ego. You're speaking to someone else's logic that has been taught and installed into them since they were children. You're fighting almost a losing battle on that one. But sometimes, have you ever noticed that when you talk to people, they can really listen? That's where I started to notice that this quiet, thick child is actually being listened to. Out here was actually being listened to and was holding people's attention. That was when, and then some people started saying to me, Tobe, can I talk to you for a little while? And they would tell me their problems and stuff like that. And that was when I started to notice that, hang on, what's going on here? And I started to realise I'm the child that was there with those questions, but I'm now of a place where I can answer my own questions, and I don't need no one's validation off that. I don't need no one's approval, and I don't need no one with a shirt, a tie and a clipboard who's got a qualification in something to tell me that I'm allowed to have my own opinion. I say opinions. Most of this stuff isn't an opinion. It's just how it is. It's how the system works. And I think most of us can see that. But I wanted to do the video on that whole, if some of you have been called conspiracy theorist or an anarchist or troublemaker, or you're seemed as odd or weird now, that's why. It's because your spiritual awakening has left you the child that you once was. And you've woken up to who you truly are. And now you're putting that out in the world, and that's being rejected by the world that you once thrived in. Or the world that you once were able to survive in quite easy. So yeah, I don't think there's anything else I wanted to say. Again, I've got notes there, guys, but I don't really look at them. Yeah, so that'll do. Anyway, I hope you're all well. Hi to all the new subscribers. I hope you're enjoying these videos. And also, guys, keep letting me know if you like these ones where I give a bit more, rather than necessarily talking about a spiritual awakening and the stages of it. I think it's nice sometimes to try and uncover the aspects of our lives that sometimes become surprising after our spiritual awakening, that maybe we're not sure why we've ended up down a certain route. Because sometimes on the surface I look at me doing these videos and I think, how has this happened to that kid that was thick? I know I wasn't thick, I was crushed. However, that's how I grew up thinking I was. This dyslexic guy thought he was thick his whole life, now realises he wasn't. Anyway, guys, hope you're all well. Have a great day. It's very cold here today, hence why I got my hat on. Love you all. Take care. Thank you.